welcome to Why Not Show Love, episode 22, Greatness. So for today's episode, we're going to go over greatness and what it means. So first off, I'm going to start with what I feel about greatness, which is everybody is born with divine gifts and greatness. We're all born complete, even if we have certain, this is just my opinion, even if we have challenges and we're here, right? And then we're born into a certain environment in life, right? Whatever family or lack of family or environment, whether that's maybe you came in super rich with all the amenities taken care of, or maybe you manifested in human form with some real heavy shit, right? Maybe you don't know any of your parents and abuse might have come in, right? And so just want to acknowledge that it's there, right? But we still, regardless of what happens, have potential for greatness and just gifts given from the Most High. I personally believe that we as spirits think about what environment is best for us to manifest in our developmental years, so that when we raise or grow up or whatever, we're able to use those tools. Because I used to not like certain things that happened to me in my childhood, but then I was like, you know what, this is part of my divine greatness. So I believe everybody is born complete and great, and we go through shit that allows us to fall from our glory or fall from our greatness. And then we're drawn to certain things, right? Maybe you're that person who's drawn to sports, so you're just like drawn to be an athlete, right? Or maybe you're drawn to drawing or painting or numbers, right? Or anime or whatever it is. We're all drawn to certain things, and I think that leads us to develop our greatness too, right? So I'll just use the athlete as an example. And we get drawn to sports. So you start playing a bunch of sports, and maybe out of all the sports you play, you really enjoy, I'll say, baseball, right? Then you realize, okay, I gotta run these bases. What am I gonna be? Am I gonna be a pitcher, someone who's knocking out home runs, a combination of both? And then we feel that, and then we train toward it, right? You might just join a little league or play baseball with your friends every day you can, or join a league or whatnot, or watch a lot of sports and study the greats and watch highlight reels, right? That's an example. So it's something that's there, but we have to develop our craft, or we can choose to develop our craft, so I'm gonna go into something personal with me. I was always drawn to music. I'm not from a musical household. Nobody in my family does music, but now I got younger cousins that do. But I just knew I loved listening to music. So I was just like, all right, I gotta listen to music, right? No one put an instrument in my hand. And then the closest I got to was in school. I didn't really go to any schools that had music programs. So I got into writing poetry. So when it was like, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you, or whatever, the meter of that is what helped me get into expressing music. So I would just be like, hey, how are you? How do you do? And the era I was born in, I'm an 80s baby, so that was in New York. I'm from Southside Jamaica, Suffern Boulevard in the building. Hip hop was around me, so I heard that music really going into its own when I was a child, growing up in the 90s. And that affected me heavily, and through exposure that showed me the ability to write down words and remember them and say them in a rhythm. And then when I wanted to explore deeper, I wanted to record. So I started with like a regular tape cassette recorder, and I would play a beat from the internet, and then I would record myself just freestyling to the beat. So I knew I loved it, right? And it took me a while, and I was like, man, how do I record this any better? So eventually I had that little skinny computer mic on an old desktop my family had. So I downloaded some software. I think it was called Goldwave. Shout out to Goldwave. And then I stole a beat from the internet, and then recorded my vocals. I didn't know about distortion or clipping, but I knew I liked music. So fast forward, and now I'm gonna run through the timeline. Then I was like, how do I record properly? And then I was like, oh, I gotta go to a studio. I went to a studio. I didn't know how to count bars. I didn't really know how to get ready for a studio. Pretty much wasted my money in doing that. And then what happened to me was I was like, okay, let me learn how to record myself. You know, audio interfaces were coming out, getting real cheap. And I was like, you know, maybe I could get a software and learn this and figure out how to record myself, right? And then I went to an audio school for 9 months. Then I did 1 year working in Sam Ash in a music store. I got my own equipment, and then, you know, YouTube tutorials started getting bigger. I started watching, and then I freelanced in a studio for a year. I went to Electric Lady, and I learned how to, you know, work on the big boards after a long time of volunteering. Then freelancing in other studios and helping other people make music. Then from that, I kind of shifted gears. Instead of writing my own joints, I worked as like an engineer, and then I wanted to get a job like as an assistant engineer and audio engineer, you know, just move my way up. And after I did that for a couple years, I realized, wow, I want to go back to expressing myself as an artist. Just hit the open mic scene, did some live sound, did that, and then I started messing with beats through sampling. Then the curiosity happened right there, where I was like, how are these sample made? And then I'm like, oh shit, that's a Fender Rhodes, that's a Strat through a wah-wah, that's a piano. And shout out to one of my friends, Mind Power. He actually was a producer I met in the audio school, and he played instruments, he had a keyboard, and he also sampled records. So he would produce the beats, both of us knew how to record, and then I would write my rhymes to the beats. And then I put out my first record called The Beginning of the End. And then I brought in some musicians to play with me at the show live. So then I started figuring out what major scale was, this and that, and then I developed into a career as a teaching artist, right? And I didn't expect that to happen, but when people saw the events I was doing, they asked me to come to schools in the Bronx, shout out to Urban Art Beat and those things. And I started volunteering, and then also getting paid to go in after school and help with these music programs, primarily bringing my mobile recording studio. I did this in the housing projects. And all these were components that led to my greatness, right? Then after I learned the scale through the piano, you know, I understood do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. When I understood that, I was like, oh, you could start doing do, re, mi from any key, and those become what are known as the 12 keys of music. Don't want to go into some nerdy music stuff, but I was blown away. Then I learned the notes by like, oh, this is C, this is F, F sharp, whatnot, right? And then I realized, wow, I needed to train my ear to be able to hear the notes and the scales, and like it led me to that. And then I wanted to become a musician, you know, play. So I got into guitar because I could play as often as possible with an acoustic guitar. You know, with a keyboard, you tend to need to plug it in and need something. So it's like, if I really want to internalize these note scales, things, the guitar will allow me to play. I'm left-handed, and I chose to play right-handed because I knew that 95 or more % of the guitars that I encountered were right-handed. So even though I'm left-handed and it felt awkward, you know, most left-handed people play like this, I was like, I'm gonna play like this because, you know, I was an adult already. I was like, I'll be able to play other people's guitars if I learn right-handed. So I went through like a couple rough years, bad technique, and then I realized ear training. Then, you know, from MCing and hip-hop, I was like, oh, I want to add singing vocals, so I'd write singing songs and work with singers for years. And now, mind you, in these programs that I was teaching, this is where I kind of learned everything about music, because, you know, if you've worked with middle school and high school students, they don't give zero fucks, at least out here in New York. They're like, this shit is trash, this is dope. And like, it was my job to kind of figure it out. So I did the best I could, but then I was able to bring in a bunch of my artist homies to help with certain things. And through that was like real school for me. So fast forward, I did that about 10 years where I was just helping other people make music. And then I was going and doing my music on the live scene. And then once again, to me, this is all still going toward that initial feeling of greatness that drew me toward poetry in the beginning. And then wanting to understand more. And then what happens is when you have that curiosity, you will manifest people in your life to do it, and you have to rise up to that challenge. So I learned a lot of things about music, but was I going to rise up and spend the time actually playing, composing, and writing and jumping into that? And this has been a lot of years now, but it means a lot to me because I'm taking these years to do what I love to do and move toward my greatest goals, right? So everything leads you to one thing to another. Then that's when I started my company. My goal was never to run a company or anything. It was always about music and learning and seeing how I could be the greatest version of myself and express feelings through art, right? And that's why like a million people get the same calling, but I think what separates the people who achieve their goals are you going to actively move toward your greatness? Look, I am a great educator, MC, and all those things, but like I started wanting to be great at other things, and I see the way I play the instruments and that as an extension of that same cat that was intrigued by poetry, when I was in my early 20s and whatnot. So that's how I let greatness guide me. And I also know that what I say in myself internally is the long way is the shortcut. What does that mean? Everything that you become a master at or great at takes time, right? Some things are subconscious because someone might not have gone to school for music or that, but they hum melodies all the time. They internalize rhythm. They play their instrument every day, or they're diligent with looking up YouTube lessons. How you get there is how you get there. But what does not change is you have to figure out a way to refine it. Like great singers who may have never taken music lessons, trust me, they're listening to the songs, humming the songs. Great MCs or wordsmiths, they're reading, they're writing. We're doing these things, and the reason I think a lot of times we don't see our greatness is because we just do what we love, so we don't consider that work. So when I was filling up notebooks full of rhymes and things, I just was like, I wasn't thinking about it, but now I can look back on it and say, yo, I went ham with the writing and reading, and now I've been going in with the playing and my vocals and everything. So it's what it is. Greatness is something that's going to lead you, and I feel like rather than the word brand, I use the word purpose. So I cook veggie food, I eat a certain way, I exercise, I do things like that in order to be able to do what I love and live a healthy life. So that's an example of my road to greatness and how it's led me to these seemingly unrelated things that to me are all connected from that same passion and desire and love for music. So what is something you are great at, and how has it led you to develop your greatness and refine your greatness and your skills and your craft? That's what I want to know. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know. We out here. This is episode 21, and live your greatest life. Move toward your greatest ambitions. When they change, you got to change with them, right? Because regret, that's the one thing why I feel I have to keep on growing and moving toward my greatest ambitions, because I don't care if anybody doesn't like what I do. It's just about like I will have a problem with myself if I don't just do what I love to the point. And I know like to get great at anything, it took me a lot of time. So now that I have newer ambitions, I'm patient and I'm moving toward greatness, and that's what I'm here to just share my story. So you are complete, you are divine, you are everything. Peace, peace.